began a series at the beginning of February entitled Free at Last, Free at Last. We held off on it on last week. I wasn't feeling my best last Sunday. And I wanted to make sure I gave the message my all. I did not want to sell you short. Had it ready, but I had to go in and tweak some things. So today I want to call your attention to the 14th chapter of Exodus. Exodus, chapter 14. And for those of you who weren't here for those past weeks, our first sermon was Saved by the Blood. Exodus 12, verses 12 through 13. And next week it was a divine detour for a divine destiny. From Exodus, the 13th chapter, verses 17 through 22. But today I want to call your attention to Exodus 14, commencing with verse 13. And when you have it, please stand for the reading and reverence of God's holy and divine word. I'll be reading from the New American Standard Bible. Exodus 14, commencing with verse 13, reads on this word. But Moses said to the people, do not fear. Stand by and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you have seen today, you will never see them again forever. The Lord will fight for you while you keep silent. Somebody say keep silent. Keep silent. You may be seated. In the presence of our Lord and Savior, I want to talk from these words of preaching, zip it.
All right now. All right. We got it.
Zip it.
All right. Woo. All right.
Throughout my life, I come across various sayings that emphasize the importance of knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. Amen. Think before you speak. Serves as a reminder to pause and consider the consequences of your words. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So listen twice as much as you talk. Encourages us to value listening more than speaking. Then there's if you don't have anything nice to say. Don't say anything at all, advising us to stay quiet when our words could cause harm. We're also reminded that once you say something, you can't take it back. And your mouth can write you a check your behind can't pay. Emphasizing that once words are spoken, they can't be undone. All of this highlights the value of silence. Something that many individuals, especially our president, fail to consider. But it serves as a reminder when we feel the urge to speak. There's a story about 2 ducks and a turtle who lived together on a pond. And the 3 friends spent their days playing in their little water hole, enjoying each other's company. But as summer arrived, the pond began to dry up, and they realized that they needed to find a new place to live. And the ducks naturally weren't concerned because they could easily fly to another pond, but the turtle, being unable to fly, was stuck. So the ducks came up with a plan. They would each hold a stick in their mouths. And the turtle would hang on to the stick with his mouth while they flew to a new pond. And the turtle, thrilled with the idea, grabbed the stick with his mouth and held on tight as the ducks took off in the sky. But as the turtle soared above the trees and the meadows, he marveled at the breathtaking view. And just then a crow has spotted him and said, surely this must be the king of all turtles. And puffed up with pride, the turtle could not resist replying, and he opened up his mouth and said, certainly. But as soon as the turtle had opened his mouth, he let go of the stick, falling to the ground below, showing that sometimes saying too much can lead to unintended consequences. In Exodus 14, the Israelites had learned the same crucial lesson, the importance of not saying anything at all. Because as they continued their journey to the land of Canaan, everything seemed to be going smoothly without incident. However, soon God had altered their route once again, leading them to camp by the Red Sea opposite of Baal Zephon and by Hiroth between Migdol and the sea. And in doing so, God had hardened Pharaoh's heart, intending for Pharaoh to believe that the Israelites had no escape and no clear direction, and he would therefore come back after them to pursue them, to bring them back to Egyptian slavery. Sure enough, things happened just the way that God had set it up. And the Israelites found themselves trapped with Pharaoh's advancing army on one side and the Red Sea on the other. And with no way out and no path forward, fear and panic gripped their hearts. And in this moment of despair, these people felt completely helpless. Nevertheless, in the midst of their crisis, they were instructed not to panic, instructed not to speak or to act out of fear, but instead they were to stand still and remain silent. And at that moment, God was teaching them that surrendering control and waiting for his intervention allows you to trust God, knowing that he'll work something out whenever there seems to be no way out. But in order to understand how you must zip it, in order to understand how God can make a way where there seems to be no way, in order to understand how God can make a way forward, number one, you have to understand that there was a sovereign plan. That there was a sovereign plan.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
The Israelites, led by Moses, found themselves in a difficult situation. Trapped between Pharaoh's army and the Red Sea after God had enticed Pharaoh to pursue them. Now we have to understand that while this appeared to be a setback, in reality it was a setup providing God an opportunity to reveal his power and his identity to both the Israelites and the Egyptians. This was interesting to me because if you were here on last Sunday, during the announcement, Sister Smith gave Miss Betty Henderson a shout out for being a teacher. And I'm sure that whenever Miss Henderson would go into the classroom, she would teach her students lessons based over the curriculum. And once she felt that her students had grasped the material of what needed to be learned, she would then administer a test. But let me tell you, God's curriculum is different. God will give you the text before he gives you the lesson. Because oftentimes, God will allow us to face challenges not to overwhelm us, but in order to teach us who he truly is. discovered that without a personal experience with God, where you can witness His strength, His power, and His faithfulness on display, you're left to rely on assumptions. And you withhold for trust in Him until those things become evident. Because how can you trust God to provide if you've never been broke as a joke? How can you trust God to give you peace if you've never gone cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs? How can you trust God to work a miracle when you've never gone through the impossible? How can you trust God to be your strength when you've never gone through the weakness? How can you trust God to restore if you've never been broken? How can you trust God to pick you up if you've never been down? How can you trust God to be your anchor if you've never gone through the storm? How can you trust God to be your comfort if you've never gone through the sorrow? The bottom line is, sometimes in order to get the lesson, God has to put you through the test. While this was God's intention, the Israelites were oblivious to everything that God was doing. Because if you read, you'll discover that they were so gripped by fear that the Israelites began to complain. Because although they were physically out of Egypt, Egypt wasn't out of them. Because in response to the situation, they basically said to Moses, man, we told you to leave us alone back in Egypt. We were better off serving Pharaoh, but now you brought us all the way out to the wilderness to die. But what hits home about this is that God can be leading us to something better. But we often find ourselves tempted to regress rather than progress at the first sign of trouble. Because as soon as we face difficulties and uncertainties, we often want to settle for what's familiar and staying in places even if it doesn't benefit us or serve us. Shallow, as I often tell you, I know that this church has gone through some struggles. In the past 25 years, 4 pastors have led this congregation. A global pandemic affected this church and delayed the pastoral search process, and it felt like an entire century before y'all even got a pastor. Members have come and gone. And as of November 2024, this church is vacant again without a pastor. People are feeling discouraged. Some are possibly contemplating leaving the entire congregation because they feel like all that's going on within the church, it isn't meant to describe. Some people are unsure of what's next. The familiar patterns and rhythms have seemed to fade, and now people would rather revert back to the good old days where it seemed as though things were easy. You even have some right now that instead of them being here at 4401 West Street, they're at Bedside Baptist. Come on, I'm going to go back to church when they get a pastor. But let me tell you, as soon as the pastor comes, they'll still be at Bedside Baptist, stuck in the same repeated cycle. The point is, it's not time to go backward, but it's time to go forward. Let me bring it to you like this.
Yeah.
Have you noticed in your car
Yeah.
that your windshield mirror is bigger than your rearview mirror?
Yeah.
It's because you have to put more focus on what's in front of you than what's behind you. And Shiloh, I know that this church may be vacant, but let me tell you, don't you look at that rearview mirror. Don't you look at the past. Don't look to stagnation. Don't look at what was, but set your eyes in front of you, because the best is yet to come. Because even in the midst of all of this, God is using it for greater. He's using this to send the pastor that Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church needs. He's using this to revitalize the mission of the church. He's using this to bring forth renewed unity. Bring forth a fresh purpose.
Come on, preacher.
So deacons, don't stop caring.
Yeah.
Trustees,
Yeah.
don't stop maintaining.
Yeah.
Ushers,
Yeah.
don't stop serving.
Yeah.
Choir members,
Yeah.
don't stop singing.
Yeah.
Sunday school teachers, don't stop teaching.
Yeah.
Leaders, don't stop leading.
Yeah.
The point of the matter is, don't you focus on what's behind. Don't go back, but keep your eye on the prize and make it your business to declare that I won't go back. And I can't go back to the way it used to be. Because never confine yourself to what God has already freed you from.
Amen.
There was a sovereign plan.
Come on, preacher.
God, one of these Israelites, number two, they had to set their position. Yeah, they had to set their position. God had positioned the Israelites exactly where He wanted them. They were put in a situation, put in a predicament where God was their only hope. But even though God would deliver them, even though He would intervene in the midst of their situation, they did not realize this, and they were overcome with fear. And understanding their fears, Moses, being the good leader that he was, urged them not to be afraid, but to stand still. While Pharaoh and his army were closing in behind them, stand still. Although they were facing imminent danger, Moses wanted them to stand still. Now, in many situations, this wouldn't have been good advice. You mean to tell me I got an army right here that's on the verge of attacking me, and you want me to sit here and do absolutely nothing? But let me tell you why it was good advice. It was good advice because it was not up for the Israelites to fight, but God would fight for them. God to fight for them. All they had to do was stand still. By standing still, they were being called to remain in place and to refrain from moving. And I can imagine that the situation was so dire that they could have easily panicked. They probably could have tried to attack the Egyptians on their own. They probably could have negotiated with Pharaoh, hey man, let us go. You tortured us long enough. Let us go on about our business. And then they could have even jumped into the Red Sea before we escaped. But instead of them trying to handle it by themselves, all they had to shallow, can I press upon you?
Yeah.
That we often delay our deliverance
Yeah.
because we try to dictate the situation. Let me say it again for the people in the back. We're stuck where we are in the same situations, and we delay our deliverance all because we try to dictate our situation. Let me tell you what we want to do. We want to be the ones to do the moving, while God is the one that has to stand still. In other words, we have a tendency to get ahead of God, but whenever we get ahead of Him, all we do is get in His way of what He can do for us. Let me tell you, whenever you put God on the back burner, whenever we take responsibility for what isn't ours, we're basically saying to God, man, you're not doing a good job. I can do this by myself. But you got to understand, while you're sitting there thinking you all of that in the bag of chips in the drink, you have to understand that what we do is limited. Our strength, our abilities, our resources, and our understanding can only go so far, but God's power is limited. That's why Psalm 46, verse 10, put it like this: be still and know that I am God. Because let me tell you, when you know what you know, you can reflect on the things that God can do. Because whatever God wants to do, like Nike, He can just do. Can you guess why? There's nothing that's impossible for God. No valley too deep. No river too wide. No mountain too high. No sickness too incurable. No habit He cannot break. The point of the matter is, God's power is limited. And He can do whatever He wants to do. Therefore, instead of trying to control the situation, take a chill pill, keep your cool, sit down and relax, and trust that God got it under control. And He will work it out. You may want to give up, but stand still and let God strengthen you. You may want to escape that challenge you're facing, probably contemplating suicide, but stay still and let God see you through. You may want to give that Negro a piece of your mind and cuss them out from A to Z, but stand still and let God speak on your behalf. You may want to grab them and turn them every which way but loose and give them for old and new, but stand still. And let God be your defense. You may try to get out of that financial struggle you in. But don't you go around here trying to sell no drugs and make a quick dollar. Stand still and trust God to provide. Because whenever you stand still, you put yourself on the sideline. God is the one executing the plan. So if you want to zip it, one, you got to understand that there is a sovereign plan. If you want to zip it, you have to set your position. But also, if you want to zip it, you have to shift your perspective. You have to shift your perspective. Moses urged the people to stand still, to give God room to work.
Yes, sir.
But while they remained in position, they were to witness God's salvation on their behalf. Now, the word salvation is used here in its literal sense of saving life or victory. It denotes deliverance, rescue, or divine intervention.
Yes, sir.
Now, if the Israelites had been running around, panicking or scrambling to fix the situation by themselves, they would have missed out on the opportunity of what God could do for them.
Amen.
What's interesting about all of this is that Moses informed them to see the salvation of the Lord. But yet and still, they were in a hopeless situation. On one hand, they're dealing with the advancing army.
Yes, sir.
On the other hand, they're dealing with the Red Sea. Yet, despite all of this, Moses got the nerve to say, see the salvation of the Lord. How can I see the salvation of the Lord and all I see is the Red Sea and Pharaoh? They were stuck between a rock and a hard place, and it seemed like there was no way through. So how on earth could they see the salvation of the Lord? Let me tell you, for them to be able to see what God could do, they had to look away from their fears and doubts and then fix their eyes on God's power. Because oftentimes when we look at what's happening around us, we feel as though God's power is distant. But never allow the magnitude of your problems to shield the greatness of God. Because whenever you maximize the problem, you minimize God. Let me paint the picture. There was a motivational speaker that went up to give a speech one day. And before he gave his speech, he had a canvas in his hand, a white canvas. But in the center of the canvas, it looked like that there was some kind of black spot or a stain on it. So he held the canvas up. And he asked everybody, what do you see? Some folks said, I see a coffee stain. Some said, I see a black spot. Some said, I see some kind of smudge. Everybody said everything about this spot that was in the middle of the canvas. But then he went on to say, y'all are so focused on the smudge that you haven't said anything about the white background that's covering up the entire canvas. And can I tell you, so often we focus on the smudges. We focus on our worries. We focus on our fears. We focus on our challenges that we forget to focus on what God can do. Because let me be honest, some of the things that we go through are not bad as we make them. Sometimes we just blow things out of proportion, all because we're looking at the problem rather than looking up to God. Let me tell you, instead of focusing on the smudge, we have to learn to focus on God. Because when we focus on Him, the problem will begin to look smaller, all because your God is bigger. When you look at God instead of the problem, you'll have a new perspective whenever you view the situation. Because when you focus on God, you don't see counsel but remission. When you focus on God, you don't see defeat but victory. When you focus on God, you don't see chaos but you see order. When you focus on God, you don't see destruction but you see restoration. When you focus on God, you don't see a vacant church. You and growth
Yeah.
within this church.
Yeah.
So high five your neighbor.
Yeah.
Encourage your neighbor.
Yeah.
And tell them, neighbor, stay focused.
Stay focused.
That's the wrong neighbor. Look at your other neighbor. Say, neighbor, I don't know what you're going through, but stay focused. It may look hard, but stay focused. It may not be where you want to be, but stay focused. You may feel like you can't see your way through, but stay focused. All you got to do is lift up thine eye unto the hill from which cometh your help. Lord, that all your help comes from the Lord. Zip it. There's a sovereign plan. Zip it. You got to set your position. Zip it. You have to shift your perspective.
That's right.
Or we can go home and eat our fried chicken. But I tell you, you have to zip it to secure your peace. You have to zip it to secure your peace. But the Israelites were trapped in this dead-end predicament. They were assured that God would fight for them. But after receiving this assurance, they were told to hold their peace. Now, in researching this phrase, I discovered that it means to be silent or to hold your tongue. And giving these instructions, it is likely that they were the target of some kinds of taunts or discouraging remarks that came from the Egyptians. But rather than lash out, rather than responding defensively or complaining, they were simply instructed to zip it.
Right now.
When we think about it, we should realize that defending ourselves, attempting to change our situations, or confronting other individuals is not the best way to obtain peace. It's hard to understand that for the sake of your peace, you have to keep your peace. In other words, you sometimes can find peace simply by shutting your mouth. But let me be honest. Some people harbor the misconception that if they don't say anything back, it makes them look like a coward and they're weak. But let me tell you that whenever you're able to remain silent, whenever you have the urge to speak, you're demonstrating your maturity. And you're not allowing the other individual to have power over you. Let me tell you, the more we respond, the more we allow that other person to dictate how we speak and how we act. And let me tell you, you become the bigger fool just by arguing with the fool. Sometimes you got to let some people do what they do and hold your peace. Let them judge you and hold your peace. Let them talk behind your back and hold your peace. Let them belittle you and hold your peace. Let them misunderstand and mock you and hold your peace. Because even if I have to walk away, even if you have to bite your tongue, even if you have to lead them on red, and even if you have to delete that entire paragraph you typed out before you press send, you need to protect your peace. At all costs. Let me tell you, I know you want to cuss them out. I know you want to get the last word. I know you want to entertain the situation. But you have to remind yourself that you are bigger their foolishness.
Yeah.
Set a boundary.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
And no longer allow yourself to engage in necessary argument.
Come on. That's right. That's right.
Don't allow these folks to get you out of character.
Yeah.
Instead, relax, bridle your tongue, hold your peace, zip it by any means. Take your peace. You know, I'm at the stage of my life, I'm like this song by Yo God of the young people at Kesdale's. That song where he said, label told me not to drop the tape. You'll catch it on your way home. That song right there. I'm at that stage in my life. Because you have to protect your peace at all costs. But in the midst of this dangerous situation, the Israelites were told to hold their peace. And in them holding their peace, God will fight their battle. And this makes me think of another individual. Same individual who one day held his peace. He was put on trial for trumped up charge. The question was asked by a man named Pilate, what do you have to say against these accusations? But the Bible says this man gave no reply. And this man went from that courtroom to a hill called Calvary. This man who knew no sin. This man who did not even have a sin nature was now to be crucified on a Roman cross. When he could have easily pleaded his case. But he knew that in the background somebody would work it out. So this man made his way to Golgotha's mountain. And up on Golgotha's mountain, he had nails driven in his hand. Up on Golgotha, he had nails driven in his feet. Up on Golgotha, as he was up against that cross, he was pierced in his side. And then a crown of thorns was put on his head. Have I got a witness? And this man was a just man. And he did not deserve anything that was happening to him. But on that old rugged cross, he finally broke some silence. And he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Have I got a witness? And then he said, Father, into my hand I commend my spirit. This man did not break his silence. He did not plead his case. And because he did not plead his case, he died on the old rugged cross. Have I got a witness? And is there anybody here that know that he died? He died to the sun refused to shine. He died to the earth began to rock and reel like a drunken man. He died to the centurion soldier saying, surely this must be the Son of God. But he did not say a mumbling word because he knew that once Friday the battle would be fought and the victory would be won. Because he stayed there all night Friday, stayed there all night Saturday. But somebody said, well, it's Sunday morning. walk right. Power to make you talk right. Power to make you live right. Power over depression. Power over cancer. Power over sickness. If you know that he has power, say yeah. 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 Look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, stand still, because God will work it out. Look at your other neighbor and say, neighbor, don't you worry, but hold on, because God has it under control. Look at somebody, walk from your pew, encourage somebody, and tell them it's already getting better. It's already working out. All you got to do is stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. And you're right. Say yeah. 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 I know you know. Salvation of the Lord. I was a little bumpy in my delivery, but it's all right. As long as you know that God can work it out. May look hard, it may look rough, but God can work it out. All you got to do is get out of his way and let him have his way. And when you get out of his way, you start turning things around.